Hello, 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 everybody. How y'all doing? How we doing? We good? We ready for this? I hope so, y'all, but buckle up. That's all I'm gonna say. So, welcome to the audience that's here and present with us in the room, and welcome to our virtual audience who are tuning in as well. You can ask questions at either the mic for folks that are here, or via the Sphinx app in the Q&A section of the REN Live tab with an access code of REN. So I have done my assignment. I understood the assignment. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Calida Jones, and it is such an honor to be here to talk to y'all today about something that's very, very near and dear to my heart, about being unapologetically boldly in every way, in every sense of those two words, of how we show up in spaces. And you know, I'm not gonna actually do an intro about myself. If you want to know about me, just like Google search. I'm more interested in edifying the three women that I chose to be here today. I was very strategic about why I chose them, and they are all representative of everyone that sits in this room in different ways. And so it's really exciting to have y'all. So I'm giving you a special shout out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to do this and to show up and be in this space with us today. So I actually did these out of order, but I'm gonna do this first because I actually think it's very important. On the screen are the community agreements for today, because this is it can be a triggering conversation, and sometimes we need to decenter ourselves when we're having serious conversations like this, because it's not about you. It's about those that are coming behind you. It stopped being about us when we became adults. And sometimes we forget that. We center a lot of things around us, and I'm more concerned about the children coming behind me. I'm more concerned about the landscape and the infrastructure that's going to be set up for them, that they don't feel like they're being abused, that they're being exhausted and overused and overwhelmed. And so it's our responsibility to set a table that looks a lot different than the one that we are currently sitting at. So I'm gonna let you read those. I'm not gonna read them to you, but I want you to choose one or two that stick out to you. For me, it's the move up, move back. So if I know I'm passionate about something and I talk a lot, I'm probably not gonna go up to the mic. So if you know that you're really passionate, I appreciate that. But there are people who are just starting their careers in the arts and culture in this country right now. If you have questions, I want you to know it's okay to ask them today. We don't care what it is. We will answer all questions. If you have concerns, if you have fears, it's okay to name them. This is a space that should be safe for that. This is supposed to be a home, your home base, where you're with people that understand and see you and validate you and how you are as an individual. So I'm gonna leave those up there because I'm so excited to introduce you to our panelists. Camille Delaney-McNeil is a multi-hyphenate creative. She is the director of the LA Phil's Yola Beckman Center in Inglewood, California. Camille's accolades are plentiful. Currently, she sits on the board of El Sistema USA. She's a highly sought after individual for her leadership and advocacy for the youth and using music as the vehicle for social change. Camille's voice echoes in platforms such as Maryland Public Radio, NPR, Sphinx Connect, National Guild for Community Arts Education, and a host of other spaces. Camille's passion lives in action forward initiatives. Her work in equity, diversity, inclusion, and access is embraced nationally, and she continues to amplify and action dismantling of access barriers and equity issues in the classical music field. Naomi, oh yes, please, give it up. It was so much fun writing these. I loved it. I was living for it. Naomi Gonzalez is another, these are all multi-hyphenate creatives up here. I'm using that with intention. Naomi is a multi-hyphenate creative and also the Vice President of Education and Community Engagement at the Mann Center for the Performing Arts in Philadelphia. She has extensive experience in music education with previous roles at the Philadelphia Orchestra and Play on Philly. Naomi's experiences in development and oversight of community programs has impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of children across the Philadelphia region and beyond. Naomi has curated accessible quality music programs for children of all ages. Her programs have received national recognition and funding from major organizations. She's another force of nature. She tills the garden quietly, but her impact is felt globally. So Naomi. And finally, we have Miss Adriane Jefferson Butler, another multi-hyphenate creative. And most recently, like within the last 5 days, an article came out in Cosmopolitan, get into it. It's called Cosmopolitan calls New Haven the cultural hotspot you didn't know you needed. And it's absolutely true, absolutely true. Adriane is a creative, national award-winning cultural equity expert, arts administrator, and public speaker. Adriane activated the Cultural Equity Plan for the city of New Haven, and her disruption is felt and celebrated widely in the state of Connecticut. She is the Director of Cultural Affairs for New Haven and the Executive Director of New Haven Festivals, where she is consistently centering cultural equity and anti-racism initiatives. Some of the major initiatives that Adriane has activated in New Haven include the Arts for Anti-Racism Pledge, the Unapologetically Radical Conference, the City of New Haven's inaugural Black Wall Street Festival, and she's continuing to unveil other opportunities to intentionally center, uplift, and prioritize Black and Brown community members in New Haven. So get that article, because all three of these women are forces of nature. So I just... Okay, so let's get into it, and just a little bit of framing today. I know that the title of this session was Unapologetically, Boldly, Intentional Strategies to Uplift and Empower Women of Color in Arts Leadership. But in this moment, I'm choosing to center Black women. And I'm gonna say their names: Dr. Claudine Gay, Antoinette Bonnie Candia Bailey. One of them is still with us, and one of them wanted peace. If someone ever feels like they can't exist and they have to end their own life for peace, we have a serious problem in this country. When Black women and women of color, but specifically Black women, speak up and they're not heard and they're not listened to, that is a problem. And it's being proven constantly and consistently. The mental health statistics do not lie about any of this. There are so many risk factors that affect us physically. As a Black woman, I can speak to it. It lives in your body. It shows up in outrageous ways. And you are still expected to show up, smile, give everybody joy, make everybody feel good, and save the world. Okay? And that is a lot of work that we shouldn't have to do. Frankly, I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore. But I wanted to share some of these statistics for mental health. And I purposely put I'm putting all women in here, but specifically adults and women. So you can see those percentages. 21.5% of white women seek mental health care services, 5.3% Asian women, 10.3% of Black women, and 9.2% of Hispanic women. And this is from a recent study that was done at Columbia. Here are some of the challenges to getting said mental health care. Barriers to mental health care: lack of awareness that that's available to you, the stigma, the self-criticism, family experiences around mental health. As soon as you say to somebody, yeah, I went to my therapist, you get the eye rolls or the sighs, and it's like, actually, this person saved my life. I chose not to do that thing because I talk to someone every week. The location, service, geographical, institutional, financial barriers, sometimes it's prohibitive. There was a time in my life where I wanted to go to therapy and could not afford it because it wasn't part of my health care plan because there was no plan. I didn't have $160 a week to pay someone to talk to keep me alive. That's real for a lot of people that are in this room and a lot of people that are listening to this virtually. The lack of culturally sensitive care, that's real. That's real, y'all, and you know I'm telling the truth. It's real. Being able to understand your experiences and your background culturally is very important, and it matters in how your care shows up in the world. Burnout. I know it's a lot of people in here that are exhausted. There are people here that have been here since Thursday where I've made eye contact with and I've spoken to and I've said hello, and then you look deeper in their eyes and you can see the burnout. Chronic stress, which leads to elevated blood pressure, right? Some of us are taking medications for things that nobody has any idea, but you still show up. You're still nurturing them kids. You're still practicing. You're still showing up for those rehearsals. You're still writing those grant applications. You're still talking to those presidents and CEOs and proving why you matter and why your community matters and why you deserve funding so you can do really good work and be a dignified human. But then you got all these other things that you have to deal with at the same time. So I thought it was important to uplift the mental health piece of this because I do feel there's a level of, we're completely totally desensitized at this point when things are happening in the world, when Black people are being killed, when Black women are forced to step down in positions, when women of color are being pushed around or being told, oh, no, we're not doing that. We know we hired you, but no, we hired you. That's good enough. Now go do the work. And it's a problem. And so we're going to talk about that today. And there, to be clear, there was so much that the four of us wanted to talk about, and we recognized the timing didn't allow for it, so we're going to try and get in as much as we can. And like I shared earlier, I'm centering Black women, but I want to acknowledge that I also have a woman that identifies as an Afro-Latina on this panel, and I want us to uncover the why. Why do these challenges continue to persist? What should we be doing differently? Who's called to the carpet on this? How do we deal with it? So I yield it to my colleagues.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure and honor to share this stage with such fabulous ladies. Thank you so much for having me here. You know, we have to strip everything back. We had that 2020 push, right, after George Floyd, after this DE&I initiative, after everyone saying, okay, we're gonna, make some changes, we're gonna have some land acknowledgements, we're going to hire and make sure our statistics look different. But none of the actual work in terms of changing the system was done. So what does that do? That leaves all of us kind of like dangling in this kind of gray space, in this kind of limbo of, we're hired because we're good and we want to do good, but there are no systems in place to support that work or to support us in general. So, that's step number one. We got to kind of strip back, because everybody's real proud. Everybody's really proud about all that work from 2020, but the work actually still needs to start.
Right. Okay.
I just want to elevate too, Calida, I love that you brought in the statistics piece, because we also have to look at it from a data perspective, and not only personal anecdotes, but actually just looking at the field. Still, as of 2022, less than 2% of women of color are in C-suite executive leadership positions. And with that, there is a disturbing trend. Calida specifically brought up needing to center Black women. And of course, we uplift all women. We uplift all women. We uplift all women of color. But there is something happening with Black women leaders. There are articles about it, about a disturbing trend and decline, a mass exodus, a lack of support, people losing their lives. These are numbers from the pandemic. And when you think about the position that women of color, Black women, leaders are going through, I personally, my mentors for just within the past 3 years in top leadership positions have all left within the span of 2.5 years from their roles. That's my legacy. Strong women who I would hear the back end conversations about not being listened to, about raising challenges, about needing to rectify. You brought us on so that we could fix something, but we don't really want to fix that. It's not in line with what we see the organization doing. You're not right. They're gone. So not only have we done this push to have, these amazing leaders come in, there are no structures in place to make sure that they succeed when they are bringing up these challenges. And, I personally don't like to put blanket statements on everything, but I literally cannot go 3 people without hearing the same story within my community and my community of leadership. And I'll just say, yes, I've been listening to a lot of panels here, and it was so interesting. One of the panels was being led by a Black leader, a male, and he gave an example of, There are two things that I do with my team. There are moments when I really need their input, and I tell them, what do we need to do? And there are moments where I just say, this is what I want to do. This is my vision. You need to help me get this done. Tell me how we're going to get it done. And I literally tightened inside, and I said, I could never do that. I could never do that. And he made an acknowledgement, too, about the difference between being a black male leader, even all, those folks are marginalized as well in leadership positions. But just let that sit. The fact that me, growing in my career and my leadership still wouldn't have the audacity or would fear taking that posture because I know that would dismantle all of the work that I've been trying to do. That doesn't mean I'm a yes woman. That doesn't mean I take crap. But it does mean that I have to be so careful. It is laborious. It is laborious. And when you talk about it residing in your body, illness, autoimmune conditions, all of the above. So that's not something I feel is equally shared amongst leaders who are not of color, particularly amongst women of color leadership, and particularly amongst black women leaders.
Yes to all of that. Yes to all of that. Oh my gosh. I think that there's so much to unpack here, and as it's already been said, it's just not enough time to do it. But the reality is, and I'm just gonna name it, right? Like, this country has been built off of the backs of black women, period, right? So we're just gonna leave that there. So the way that these systems continue to show up are exactly how they are designed. So when we talk about why, well, the why is because these institutions were not designed for women of color and leaders like us. So we are literally getting into these leadership roles, having to dismantle systems, right? Having to defy the odds. Because even when we walk into the room, we're not expected to be as smart. We're not expected to deliver. They're watching everything that we do. And so there's a pressure on ourselves to even have to be better because we don't want to slip, because we don't want to give them anything to have a problem about, right? So we are already coming into these leadership roles with the odds against us, and so that's the reality. So I just want to name that. Now, as far as the pandemic, absolutely, right? Everything was as exacerbated as we know during the pandemic. But one thing that I think we saw surface was everybody once again relying on black women to have the answers, black women to fix the problem. What do we do, right? I remember one of my bosses calling me during the pandemic after the murder of George Floyd, where the community was holding everyone to task, what are the answers gonna be? How are you gonna change? I work in government, arts and government, so what is the government institution gonna do to combat racism? And I'm getting a frantic call, right? I'm on an anti-racism session at the moment, doing something actually for myself. I get a frantic call on Adriane, do you have the answer to this? Right? And now I'm being asked to lead the charge on the entire anti-racism initiative, not just for cultural affairs, but for the entire city of New Haven, right? We come up with this really vested and deep, detailed plan for race equity for the city. We're in sessions with the JEDI group, which is the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion group for, honestly, probably 2 years. And I wasn't asked once about the progress of this group, where we were going, what were the next steps. And the reason was because it was just a box that was asked to be checked, right? However, what was not accounted for was the major distress that was happening within this group, the burnout, the mental health issues that started to arise from doing race equity work. And what became really, really prevalent to me is that we are asked to do work without given the resources to do the work, and without being checked in about our own mental health, right? So I would just say, for me, that's the problem. That's an example of what continues to happen. My story is just one of millions. This happens to black women and women of color every day, right? So what I realized is, I'm no longer going to do that, right? I'm not going to sit here and train up people who may not even really care or are doing to just check the box. I'm gonna do it in an actionable way, and something that's better for my mental health. But that's the why. It was designed that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, the three of you brought up some really, some really important points because we're in a pattern, and we've been doing this for a long time, so we're literally on autopilot. There was a period where I've worked at a lot of different places, but there was a period at a job that I was working at where literally my moves every day for self-protection was I would get up, I would pray, I would cry for 45 minutes, and then I'd get on Zoom and facilitate equity, diversity, and inclusion workshops every day for 6 weeks. And made other people feel better about, oh, we're moving our organization forward, we're moving things forward, we're shifting the wheel. But if it's not in your budget, are you actually doing it? I mean, I'm keeping it honest. If it's not in your budget, and I'm not talking about a budget for a workshop, I'm not talking about a budget for some books. I'm talking about a budget where you actually honor the Black women, the women of color, and you give them the resources freely without asking for a written report of what they took away from that experience. You give them the resources and you walk away. And then you listen. You don't ask questions, you listen, you watch, you observe. There's something very different about intentionally putting resources, putting the finances in place so that when you determine or decide that your organization might feel they're ready to embrace Black women or women of color, because that's another thing, y'all. Folks get emotionally distraught when stuff happens in this country. It's wild. I mean, 2020, I was like, oh my God, everybody is upset. And we got statements and quotes and books and pictures, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna have this, and we're gonna do 25 workshops, and we're all gonna do this together. And here we are in 2024, where women are saying, it's enough already, I'm gonna end it. I don't need to be here anymore. So something that happened, the math ain't mathing, y'all. The math ain't mathing, it's not happening. It's not happening. And it's uncomfortable. This is an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people. It is not uncomfortable for me. I have been uncomfortable since 1981. So I've always been uncomfortable. I thrive in discomfort. But the moment that you can say, you know what, we need to shift our budget. We actually need to look at, are we actually supporting people? And I'm not talking about sending them to the Arts Administrators of Color convening or the Sphinx Connect, which is amazing, and I'm glad that we get to have these spaces. But I'm actually talking about Black-centered spaces, women of color-centered spaces, spaces that actually acknowledge and peel back the layers of survivor that we have to take every day before we come on stage and smile at you. Like, most of you have no idea what's going on with any of us right now, but we smiling and talking and laughing. Everybody can feel the energy, and the energy is intentional. It's real, but we're also conditioned to be that way. We are conditioned to show up, to smile, to say, oh, girl, I love those glasses. You look so good today. How you doing? Are you okay? You look distraught. Can I help you? Are you thirsty? Do you need water? Are you hungry? That's how we're conditioned. We don't get a chance to be in the mess and to actually respond and react, although lately I've just decided that's just what's gonna happen, so everybody can get it, okay? But truly, put it in your budget. If there are people here who are running organizations and you have Black women or women of color in your organization, and there is no funding for those individuals or that group of people to go and seek counseling, yes, seek counseling, so they can be their best versions of themselves when they show up at your organization. There's a level of dignity of humans that's missing in arts and culture in this country, and I'm just gonna say it. I mean, I'm a violinist, classically trained, conservatory. I also work in arts and culture, advocacy. There's a level of dignity that is not being acknowledged, it's not being nurtured. The expectation is that you work, because that's what we pay you to do. And it's not just about that. It's about the whole person and how they show up. And it's important. I wanna shift. Go ahead.
Can I pick up on that, Calida?
Yeah,
because
of course.
Not that we need another term, but professional allyship.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just about go and seek these services to support yourself and get your counseling, get yourself together. But what is the practice that you are embodying when you have a woman leader, a woman leader of color, a Black woman leader, in your spaces? What are you doing for them every day? Mm-hmm. How are you making sure that your board is on board with their vision? How do you make sure that you're enveloping and developing trust? How are you making sure that you're modeling behavior in conversations when they're in front of you and when they're out of the room? to support what it is they're trying to get done. In our conversations, we've been talking about not only the pandemic, but women leaders have been also faced with a disproportionate amount of challenges that they've had to lead through these past 2.5, 3 years. So not only is it already stacked against us, but then we've already had to deal with this inequitable challenge, and we're still thriving, going above and beyond, but then we're burned out. We're dying, we're doing all sorts of things, we're making ourselves ill. So professional allyship, this is some of the stuff Calida is talking about as well. It's not just let's put the money, but it's your behavior and what you choose to do, how you choose to have conversations when you're bringing people in, and how you're supporting that colleague and that leader, so that when you do go into the room and your leader of color, your woman leader, your Black leader says, this is what we need to do, let's do it, you say, how far, how high do we need to go? Let's go.
So speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about, all three of you, the perception of false agency? Where they do that at? Like, what's going on with that? Can we unpack that a little bit? The false agency of, folks say they support, but the action behind that word support looks real funny. So I'm curious about your perceptions and actually, how do we blow that up, the false agency? That's my follow-up.
I'm going to say that the expectation to never trip up, to never make a mistake, because if you make a mistake, it's not one mistake, it is 10 mistakes. We have to always show up 110%, not 100, because 100% is for everyone else. It has to be 110%, and it has to be excellence at every point. This false agency is conditional. It's conditional based on your performance. If you don't stack up and if you don't perform, then sayonara, adios. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the optics, right? They like the optics. There's so many people who like what it looks like to hire a woman of color, or what it looks like to hire a Black woman. Particularly, we come in, we're bossed up, we're strong, we're all of the things that they say that we are, but they expect us to be the superheroes, right? And I think that once it pushes too far, right? Once it's too progressive, once it's too unapologetical, that's when it becomes a problem. So we are really just there, again, I hate to say it, but to sometimes just check that diversity box. We are there to give the illusion of progressiveness, but not necessarily make everybody else uncomfortable. So it's okay, as long as you don't change this right here. As long as you don't make everybody in the room uncomfortable. That's inappropriate. That's too far. And so what that is it's fake, right? Because we're not able to actually get into the systems and create the systemic change that's necessary. Right. And it's not enough to just change one thing or one program. It should be infused in everything that we do. And I said before we came on this stage, the fact that we continue to need to have these conversations is a problem. It should already just kind of be part of the norm, right? We're so embedded in that, everybody's already on the same playing field, right? Where our voices are already magnified, period. But I do think that that's what it is. It's like people don't really want to be pushed too far. And that just is not working for most Black women and women of color anymore.
Yep. You brought up a great point, and I want to acknowledge that our audience is filled with folks that might be just starting out in their arts leadership, folks that are in the middle, maybe people that are on the tail end. But for my friends out here that are just jumping into the pool, and I know you're excited, stay excited, keep that joy activated. Don't ever let anyone take that joy from you. I don't care what they say to you, what they compliment or don't compliment. You keep that joy alive, because that joy is literally going to save your life. However, that good old imposter syndrome is just always, it lurks. And I'm concerned for our up and coming leaders in the arts, right? Because we've all experienced it on different levels. I don't need to go down that road. But how do you battle that, or how do you prepare yourself for when that's going to happen? How do you battle it? How do you overcome it? What does the overcoming look like?
Michelle Obama was right. She said this, right? When you go to those tables and you arrive, you find out, ooh, they're not as smart as you think that they are. She's not wrong. But I say that in jest, but also in seriousness, because all of us on this stage, many of you in the audience, we're some of the most prepared people there are currently in the field and what we're doing. The amount of dedication between the four of us alone, with our schooling, with our personal investment, with reading, with advancing ourselves, because it's a requirement, because of that 110%, because that one mistake might ripple into, an exaggerated 10 to somebody else's perspective. So the level of over-preparedness that we exhibit on a daily basis is beyond enough than what's been coexisting for decades and decades and decades. So let that sink in, my young friends and leaders emerging. You are enough. You are enough. And everybody is figuring it out at the top. They've just had a little bit more time, and they've seen the world a little bit longer, so they can predict, right? Our brains, let's talk about science, our brains are always looking for the patterns in life. They just got their pattern identification system a little bit sharpened because they've lived here longer, right? And they've operated in a system that benefits them and that they know very well. So you have to combat that. So the fact that you're sharpening skill sets and muscles that people don't even know exist for themselves. So you are enough. And when you realize you're in that space and you start seeing the conversations, you need to be the one to advocate for what is right. To say, hey, this is what I've learned because I've actually put in the work. This is my experience. For me, that's when the imposter syndrome starts to dissipate.
Yeah.
And honestly, I get a little bit frustrated at times because not only are you in this state, but then you're looking at some of the folks who are making the decisions, the gatekeeping, the barriers, the bridges that are in your way that, as one woman, you cannot tackle on your own. And it's hard building coalition to break those barriers. That's when you get exhausted as well. So, you are enough. You've been more than enough the moment you decided you wanted to do this work.
And can I just say, I think what I would love for us as women of color and Black women to do is give ourselves a little bit more grace and humanize ourselves. Right? I mean, the rest of the world doesn't often humanize us. And I think that that's the problem. There's this facade on who we are and who we are expected to be. But at the end of the day, we are just human. Yes, we do have magic in us, but we're human, like at the end of the day, we're wives, we have kids, we have family, we have friends, we have other responsibilities. A lot of us are carrying multiple jobs. I mean, we are so much more than just the career. And I think battling that imposter syndrome is sometimes just stepping outside of the career too, and just finding what you love again. Centering your joy again, right? Radical joy. What does that look like outside of the confines of the world and society and all of those things? I think the recentering is really, really, really fundamental and important. Also, I think with imposter syndrome, I was telling my students the other day, so I teach now, and I have a class I'm teaching on arts and entertainment management. And I was telling my students the other day, like, when you put something out into the world, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think a lot of times because we have that stress and pressure on us, particularly as Black and brown women, to be perfect, sometimes we delay on some of our entrepreneurial endeavors, some of the stuff we're trying to launch, the businesses, the concepts, the visions, we're holding it back because we think it's gonna be rejected, it's not gonna be accepted, or because of the expectation that we have to show up perfectly.
Right.
So I wanna say, let's debunk that.
Right.
That is a myth. Nobody does that in this world but us, people of color, and we don't have to be perfect. So I would say to anybody who's young, new, entrepreneur, creative in any way, go and do that thing. Go and launch that thing, because I promise you, somebody is probably waiting for you to launch that idea, and that could be connected to a greater purpose, right? And so I think that that's the thing. It's just the imposter syndrome sucks because it holds us back in so many ways.
Absolutely. Gonna get a little controversial, y'all. People that know me, if you know, you know. So sometimes it be your own folks, okay? Sometimes it's your own folks, and we gotta unpack that a little bit. That you get a platform, and you gotta use it. You gotta take advantage of the opportunity. But I hope this is a growth opportunity and isn't seen as it's not me. I'm not the one doing that. Well, maybe you are. I don't know. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, and I want to uplift that this is an ongoing challenge in our communities, specifically those who came before us. And I've experienced it in different ways, and we talked about this at length when we were talking about this panel, that feeling, there's still gatekeeping that happens in our own communities, y'all, and I'm saying it out loud and publicly. There's still gatekeeping, and there's this feeling of, as you're matriculating through your career and as you get older, and then those who've already done it before you look at you like, well, why are you trying to take what I've done, what I've built? And that's not what I'm trying to do. I actually want to learn from you. Like, I want to grow. Like, you're part of my lineage on some level. So what can we do differently to eradicate that or to lessen it? Because it is real in these streets.
All right, I'm gonna speak as the Afro-Latina on this stage.
Okay,
Can
I like it.
Are y'all ready, y'all? All right, so sometimes, I'm talking to the Latinos here. Hola. Hola. Sometimes we don't do our sisters the service, okay? People of color and all communities of color, we experience colorism. It is a product of colonialism, of colonizing, right? It's a product of European countries that treat people better if they have a proximity to whiteness, right? So even within the Latino community, Afro-Latinos and non-Afro-Latinos, and those who can pass white passing and non-white passing, right? Even within ourselves, we have this turmoil. But damn, don't we, I'm sorry, darn. My bad, y'all. Darn, sometimes we do a disservice to our Black sisters. We do. So I'm gonna speak on the behalf of the Afro-Latinos and just Latinos in general. Those who are in positions of being at the gate, being at the table, being at the room, open the door, pull up that chair, okay? Promise.
Thank you.
Had to say it.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't something that's talked about because it's not popular, right? Like, it's easier to gloss over it, but we all know, right? Because it exists, and that's another protection shield that we now have to put up because we hope we get that job. We hope that we get acknowledged for the work that we're doing. We hope we get that award, but we don't want to upset the apple cart. We don't want to step on anyone's toes who have already been there before us. But it's actually my responsibility to step back. As those of you that are coming up behind me, it's my job to move back and give you agency. It's my job to amplify and uplift you intentionally. It's my job to nurture and love you and care for you and protect you. And it's everyone who came before me's job to protect me as I do that. Because you've already gone through what I'm going through. You probably went through worse than what I've gone through. And I respect you for that deeply. But don't tear me down when I'm trying to build up those coming behind me. And all of us are guilty of doing that on some level, whether it's subtle or in your face. But we can stop doing that. We don't have to perpetuate behaviors that were part of colonialism when they started. We don't have to be part of that. We have the opportunity to break the whole thing, break the model, blow it up. I'm all about blowing stuff up. Not legally, okay? Let me just... Because I think this is on the internet too. Okay, so legally, okay? But we don't talk about this because it feels easier to talk about all of the challenges. But when we actually look at our own self-identifying stuff that we also bring to the table collectively, we don't like to talk about that at the family dinners. We don't like to upset that. Well, I'm here to upset it. Because if we don't change it, this room is going to have the same conversation 10 years from now. And we don't need to be doing this. We need to activate. Like, I'm interested in activation. Like, I'm not interested in having any more conversations about, well, what should we do? Do it. Just do it. We're gonna do it, and it's gonna be okay. And it's gonna be uncomfortable. Like, it's totally gonna be uncomfortable, and sometimes it's not gonna work. Sometimes it's gonna be really messy. Sometimes you're gonna be really angry. But to do nothing, to stay as is complicit. And it's the worst form of it. And I don't wanna be involved with anything like that. So just, I'm framing that in this moment. We have a couple more minutes. Yeah, of course.
So I think I want to name, and I know for all of us on the stage, I think it's fair for us to say, and probably many of you in the audience, many of us have been hurt by other Black women.
Ooh, yep.
And that's the thing that's really not being fully addressed, is how, kind of like what Calida is saying, like, how do we embrace each other more? You know, there are people who are leaving organizations and institutions, and it's not due necessarily to white-led leadership. It's due to the Black counterpart or the person who's supposed to be mentoring you, right? There's a lot of deep pain and trauma that's come out of that. And so I would challenge us to embrace each other as sisters more, right? And to understand, we already know what we're up against. That's the thing. So the fact that we do it to each other is what makes it so much more problematic. But I also think, when all of you were talking, I'm just thinking about, like, why is that happening, right? And I think that's just part of the way the system is designed too, though, right? It is, if you go back to the paper bag test, right? When we're talking about colorism, and those who might have been in sororities understand this very well, right? Between the AKAs and the deltas, and I'm a delta, so you know, I'm just saying. But I am wearing pink, okay? But I'm just saying that that's the thing. Like, we are pitted up against each other so much that I think if we could just walk around with a greater awareness, that will be better. Like, that's something actionable we can all leave this room and try to do, is just be more aware of how I'm showing up for my colleague, my sister, who happens to be, you know, gone through some of the same experiences that I have. So I think just embracing each other more is really, really important, as I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Thank you for that. So I just moved to the other slide that has some of the strategies that you can take with you, but also before we delve into that, because we want to make sure there's opportunity for Q&A for people to talk, but I want to also make sure that we center the people who have experienced these types of situations in the Q&A. So I know we're taking questions if there's questions on the app, but also in this room. Before you go and step up to the mic on either side of this space, think about whether or not it would be valuable for you to listen to the stories of the people who are actually affected by these experiences, or are your questions more important about what you need? So this is a moment where you need to decide, am I centering myself or am I decentering myself? So I'm framing the Q&A like that on purpose, because I want people to have space to actually speak about their experiences. Okay, so in my little, what was it? When I submitted the proposal for this panel, I said we were going to have some actionable strategies. These are your action steps, okay? These are your call to actions, right? Listen. Just listen. Here's what Calida does not want in 2024. I don't think that's what they meant. Yes, they did. They said what they meant. And it's okay. So please, listen to people when they express what's happening or something that has been said. For people that are running organizations that actually greenlight and make decisions, create systems of support before hiring Black or women of color. Run said systems by Black or women of color already in the field. Now, so don't go drawing stuff up and just activate it without running it by some people. Check your work. Check your work. Embrace discomfort. I'm sure there are a few people in here who are very uncomfortable, probably squirming in your chair, moving, trying to adjust yourself. Embrace that discomfort, because this does not come with comfort, because we don't get that agency. We don't get to be comfortable. It's all the way down to what shoes you're going to wear for the day, how you wear your hair, how big are your earrings, what color's your lipstick. So embrace the discomfort. Apologize, and then step out the way. Just apologize, and then we don't have to keep going. Just step out of the way. Please don't hire Black or women of color unless you're prepared to continuously train your board, your staff, and yourself to ensure there isn't perpetuation of long-standing harmful practices and behaviors. Please, as someone that hires people all over the country, that does executive searches, it's really problematic when there isn't anyone that looks like me on the screen, but you want to hire someone to run things that look like me, and you don't have systems in place to protect and take care of them. So it's okay. I'm gonna say this might be unpopular. You don't have to hire them. It's okay. We gonna be okay out here. We build tables, okay? I mean, unless you're gonna do it with intentionality, and I'm saying that because for every time that I've met or spoken to a Black or woman of color that has said, yeah, I just started this amazing job, and then 6 weeks later, they're like, this was not the job for me. This is not right. I shouldn't have done it. If your organization is not prepared to protect and serve and love and cultivate and nurture them, it's okay to not do it. I just want to release the pressure valves. If you feel pressured by your board, your donors, well, they said we got to diversify our staff. We have to do it or we're not going to get that funding. Don't you dare put that on humans to come into your organization and right the ship when the ship was already shaky before they got there. And then understand and focus on the unique barriers that Black women face. Because as the ladies all said, there are unique barriers that are specific to me, that are not specific to Afro-Latina, that are not specific to Latino, Asian Pacific Islander. It's all different. We're not all the same, which is why I actually don't, there's a lot of different there's all the acronyms. I say the full words, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because I'm not all of those. So it feels disrespectful to the rest of my community. So I'm gonna always say it, even if it's an extra sentence. I wanna invite people to step up to the mic. I don't know if there's questions on the app or not. I'm not even sure what the rules are for that. Okay, oh, I see a person I know, okay.
This question is from Jasmine Barnes, who's a composer.
Okay.
How do we combat the feeling of disposability or, quote, blackbailing when untrue stereotypes have surfaced? What are some actions we can take without shrinking?
Oh.
It's very telling that all of us don't have an immediate solution. Part of the issue as well.
Yeah.
I think disposability is very much giving power to the perception of others of the value of your worth. And I think because for so long, and this speaks a little bit, Calida, to what you were saying earlier about what we do to each other, for so long we've been taught to assimilate to a certain type of model or behavior to make it. And if that's all you've known for how to be successful, it's no wonder when the next generation comes up and wants to do things different, we have a hard time. Right? So a lot of it is that. It's like, what are you doing? You're disrupting this. We just made it here. So I think to go back to that question of disposability, that is because it is the perception and the value of their opinion matters more about my worth, my value, and my work. Right. And to Kalida's point, what we're doing is creating narrative, open dialogue, and discussion about building our own spaces, about creating coalition and community amongst each other, because as we know, there is power in numbers, right? And when you reach critical mass, they're gonna have to listen to you. So instead of waiting for that, what are they gonna do to me? I've already been building my coalition, right? Look at what's happening with Bond and the Black Orchestra Network and other things, just advocacy about tenureship and all these kinds of things. That's a whole nother panel. But be ready to go, because that's what we're responding to. And when we have that behind us, it doesn't matter what they think they can do to dispose us. We cannot be disposed of.
Right.
Oh, that was good. Yeah. And I wasn't going to even say anything, but now you got me riled up a little bit. I think you're so right. We have to build our own ecosystems, like our own ecosystems. outside of white-led institutions. I'm just gonna say it. Because what I realized, and I have this debate with a lot of my friends all of the time, a lot of my colleagues who also are arts leaders, or they're in the entertainment industry, and they're saying, is it really our jobs to continue to try to make these institutions recognize us, realize us, or become something they were never designed to be?
Right.
Do we just allow it to sink on its own while we create our own for our own? And that's a real thing. And then connecting that to disposability, when you create your own, you're no longer disposable.
Right.
Because it's yours.
Right.
So that's why I think as Black people in general, having something that is for us, having something that we owned, building our own wealth, I'm so adamant about that, unapologetically, because all of that other stuff that people give to us can go away. We have to make sure that we're here, that we're valued, and we have to secure our legacy.
Yeah.
And so that's how you become indispensable, by securing your legacy and building your own.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mariah Ford, and I'm here from New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, so hey, Sarah.
All right, hey, Sarah.
So my question is, my entire career has been in arts administration, but I am just now like in an assistant director role. And now I'm experiencing, whenever I make professional suggestions to like my team, I feel like I'm not being taken seriously. And it's almost as if it's like, we're gonna have her in the room to make her feel like her input and suggestions are needed, but we're just not gonna go with it. And it's like, then why did you hire me in the first place? And then I'm trying to like learn the balance of, how do I say this? With being assertive in what I'm saying, but like not being perceived as like aggressive, angry Black woman. And it's like, so now I find myself like making myself smaller, like, well, hey guys, like, let's consider, like, can we try this? Instead of saying, actually, as the professional in the room, this is what we need to be doing. So I wanted to ask, like, what tools would you give to someone who's like trying to be assertive in their role and like be taken seriously?
Be aggressive. Be aggressive.
Hey. Ma'am, you be assertive. That's who they hired.
Yeah.
In that interview, you didn't shrink. You did not shrink in that interview. So, and I would even challenge you to question them. Well, why did you hire me? I show up. I'm prepared. The data doesn't lie. So what can I do differently to communicate what it is that you need to understand what I'm trying to share? That's what I would do. And walk
Thank
away.
you.
Drop the mic. Go get a massage.
Thank you.
So that, I mean, honestly, that's what I would do. I would boomerang it back to them and ask them, well, why am I here? Like, actually, like, I understand that this is a job, but when you're not receiving what you need to do your job effectively, it's a problem.
Right.
Right? So I would boomerang it back. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add.
Yeah, I don't know, every institution has its own system of HR, of report up
We
to.
don't have HR.
Okay. Every,
All right.
okay, let's see. Resource-wise, I mean, I don't know if there's ever like reviews, like maybe yearly reviews, all that kind of stuff, in a way that stuff has to be written down for record of some sort. And there are larger institutions of labor organizations that I would look into as well that actually protect us in ways that you might not realize if certain actions would be taken against you. I'm just trying to give you like tools as well in that sense, that write it down. Write it down. Like, have things written down. I had this idea this day, and yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mariah. This corner, yes.
Hi, I'm Kennedy Royal. I'm a saxophonist and vocalist from the Crane School of Music in SUNY Potsdam. I'm here with 10 of my other students and colleagues. I just wanted to ask how you navigate space in terms of performative activism, specifically at the higher level of education systems. I'm a sophomore, so I'm just starting out in my college career, but already I've been seeing certain institutionalized systems that have put barriers up and have put me in a box already. I'm one of the only people of color. I'm the only person of color in my saxophone studio. So how do I get closer to those barriers and be a part of the conversation without falling into the angry black woman trope, without having to correct people all the time on terminology and how we are supposed to act around POCs?
Whew, okay. I yielded, yes.
I mean, I think what I will say is I can just tell you what I've done. That's really all I can give you is my insight on my own lived experience. As I said earlier, I kind of just got tired. I got tired of honestly, even the lingo around how we demonstrate anti-racism and the language and the way you have to be if you're this anti-racist activist. Like, forget all that. I'm a black woman at the end of the day, right? And at the end of the day, I have my own experiences and ways in which I want to communicate my own activism. I would say take control and ownership of the way you want to show up in the world.
Yep.
Period. It doesn't matter because what's happening is they're trying to police the way we're talking about anti-racism too. Okay? So that's why I said like, we have to be like, if we're going to talk about this, let's be honest. Let's be really honest. So that's why I say just be you, and however you want to organize, however you want to demonstrate your activism, that's okay. And we all play different roles. Like, I don't know all that you're doing, and I would love to have a conversation with you maybe after this on all that you're doing, but there's different roles that people play, right? You got some people who want to go and they want to activate out in the streets, right? And they want to be a part of the protest. You have some people who will go and they will demonstrate from internally by creating systems or trying to dismantle in their own particular role the best way they can. You have some people who are a little bit more public when they talk, you know? You have some people who are donating money to activism, and that's their way. So there's not a one-size-fits-all, and I also don't think you have to conform to the way that people are trying to put you into an activism box, if that makes any sense. So just do you, boo. That's it, do you.
All right, trying to get to all these questions because the time is fleeting. Yes.
Hi, I'll try to make this quick. My name is Brittany Burgess. I work at the Juilliard School in the EDIB office. Thank you for just having this. It's been amazing. As I was listening, I constantly kept thinking about Malcolm X's quote about the most disrespected person in America are black women, underrepresented, like neglected, and in this unfortunate reality that we live in, how do you guys center care for yourselves and the community that you have around you?
Poorly. I'm just speaking for me. I'm trying to be better about it. No, seriously, I'm really trying to be better about it. But actually, that's true. I just recently was able to actually really prioritize self-care because it became a life or death situation, right? So, like, I had to decide that I was going to do that, or I would not be here with you all tonight. So, leaning on your people, like, I lean on them heavy, and they will pull up. Like, get your pull-up crew and make sure they got signed contracts, okay? And they do. They know what it is. But I would say find your people and make sure they hold you accountable. And hold yourself accountable to being accountable to them. It is very uncomfortable. Adriane on the end consistently makes me feel like you really need to grow. Like, I'd be thinking, oh, I'm growing, and then Adriane will be like, no, ma'am, no, you're not. But you need that. Like, you need people like that because it challenges how much you have to carry on your own and how much you can actually release and receive love and care from your own people. So that's what I would say. Find your people and let them nurture and love you. Okay? We might be out of time, y'all. I don't want to get yelled at. Like, I'm trying to come back. So, listen, they're amazing. Please clap. They are amazing. Thank you so much.